Hey everyone, I'm John Lynn, the founder and chief editor at Healthcare IT Today, and we're excited to bring you another in our series of interviews with top leaders in health IT. And we're here at the eClinicalWorks Enterprise Summit, and our guest today is Ben Broseke. He's IT director at Orthopaedic Institute of Ohio. Welcome, Ben.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, excited for our discussion, but before we dive in, tell us a little bit about yourself and Orthopaedic Institute of Ohio.
So Orthopaedic Institute of Ohio started in 1998. We went live with ECW in 2006.
Okay.
So we've been on for 17 years. We've got 25 providers, 35 mid-levels, and then 5 PTOT.
Okay.
So
pretty good sized practice then.
we've got a main location and then 8 satellite locations.
Wow.
Throughout Northwest Ohio.
Yeah, that's impressive. Well, and it's interesting, you've had quite a long run with eClinicalWorks, but I think it's interesting, you did a session at the Enterprise Summit talking about Healow pay and kind of that. But tell us, what were you doing for payments before you adopted Healow pay?
Well, we were doing what everybody else does. You know, you send out your claims, send out your statements, wait on those to come back. You're right.
Does anyone check their mail?
Right, yeah, and that's exactly it. That 90% of what everybody gets now is junk mail, and it hits the table when it comes in, and they don't think about it again for 2 weeks, and then, like you said, you pray that you get those checks back, or they call in and make a payment, or so it's frustrating. So.
Yeah, it's a hard thing. I mean, to be fair, I can't remember the last time I checked my mailbox. So my mom actually literally texts me now and says, "Hey, just so you know, I sent you a letter."
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it's been a huge shift. Is that what prompted the move to Healow pay?
I think so. Getting those statements or the billing to those patients before the statement goes out, that was huge. And so we're not only getting that statement to the patient as soon as it hits patient responsibility, we're saving money by not having to send out those paper statements. We looked at it, and I think we saved about 25% in cost of paper statements.
Interesting, and you probably collect more because if it's coming electronically, they're more likely to pay than the paper statements, or what's been your experience there?
Yeah, I think so, because it's easy. It's right in front of them. We get everything electronic. My electric bill comes electronic. It's right there in front of you. You hit the button, you pay the bill, and you go on.
That's interesting to see the growth of payments because of it. Yeah, that's really interesting to see. And then even the patients adopting it. And that's maybe the other question I wanted to ask you is, how are these payments working across your whole population? Are you seeing any sort of differentiation between maybe older versus younger patients, or what's adoption look like for your patients?
Absolutely, and it really, when we took the data back, it surprised us. Okay. That's what everybody says. Your older patient demographic isn't going to adopt this, and that's an assumption we can't make. We sent out 25,000 or so text or emails.
Okay.
24,000 plus of those were read. It was about a 95.5%. And when you look at the patient demographic above 56 and older, okay, 13,000 payments came back from that group. That was the highest group that we had in our entire demographic section.
Wow. So you got more patients from the older population than the younger population? Yes. That's interesting. I wonder if the part of that may be that the older population has their younger children that are paying it, and they want to pay it that way as well.
I agree. Yeah. I think that could be part of it. But like I said, the data that we had surprised us all. Because like we said, the assumption is that the older or elderly population isn't going to use the new technology. My dad's 80 years old, but he's still got a cell phone, and he understands how to text and use that link.
Well, it's interesting too, because that population is very responsible too and feels an obligation. So when they get the text, they're probably like, "Oh, I need to pay this right away."
Right, exactly. And they're getting that text before they get a paper statement, which they're used to having that paper statement in their hand. But they're taking that text and making the payment prior to receiving that bill.
Yeah. It's fascinating to see the evolution of this, right? I mean, we started talking about sending out paper statements. Yeah. I assume you're still doing that on the back end. If they don't pay, is that
we
still
haven't,
an option?
It's always an option. We haven't gone completely electronic, and I don't know that at this point you can truly do that. Mm-hmm. But I think as we progress, the entire population is going to be more receptive to that, electronic information and data back and forth. And I think eventually we'll be able to get away from, say, 80 to 90% of those paper statements.
Yeah. Well, and I think we'll probably see the evolution as well, kind of like we did with banks, right? I haven't gotten a bank statement in forever, but I do get an email with that statement.
Right, yes, yeah.
So I think that's the evolution we'll see.
Right. And one of the things we didn't do was to inform our population, the office staff and the patient population, hey, we're turning this on.
Okay.
So we did field a lot of calls up front, is this a legitimate thing? So I think that that elderly population is also aware of data security.
Interesting. So tell me more about that rollout. You educated your staff and the patients about this, or you just did?
We just turned it on. We didn't say any, and then we started getting calls. Is this legitimate?
Okay, I see.
And then I get calls from the staff that say, is this legitimate?
That's interesting. So maybe it was a learning from it, is
Right.
that you could have educated the staff more, or maybe even some of the patients.
Right.
So that
And that would be my
trust
suggestion for anybody who turns on, the HPS, that you put that information out there on your website. You may be getting this text, and kind of give a screenshot of what it may look like. And that way they kind of know what to expect. And then your staff obviously let them know that that's coming also.
Sure. Well, I'm sure they like it eventually, because then it's, fewer calls for them and it's more electronic. Right. So that's great. Well, Ben, I appreciate you taking time to tell us about Healow Pay and your experience. And I love that learning at the end. That's really great. And thanks everyone for watching and listening. If you want to find more great healthcare IT content like this, be sure to check it out at healthcareittoday.com or search for Healthcare IT Today on your favorite podcast application. Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, John.